So the final story featured on the Doctor Who The Beginning box set is third story ever made, The Edge of Destruction. And while I don't necessarily think this is one of the best episodes ever made, surprisingly it did remind me of two New Who episodes that have actually been kind of heralded as two of the best episodes made in the show's history. Which is odd because The Edge of Destruction, it's not really one to write home about, if I'm being honest. I mean, it's a decent episode, but not one that would really classify it there among the best. But anyway, let's get down into it. While while An Unearthly Child had four parts and the Daleks had seven, this particular storyline only actually lasts two episodes, those being titled The Edge of Destruction and The Brink of Disaster. In the episode, once again, the cast reprises their roles. William Hartnell as the Doctor, Carol Ann Ford as Susan Foreman, William Russell as Ian Chesterton, and Jacqueline Hill as Barbara Wright. There's an explosion kind of aboard the TARDIS, and they kind of wake up, kind of recover a little bit groggy, and some of them do seem to have some form of kind of amnesia. But then, kind of throughout the episode, they find that machinery is kind of acting weird. The monitor is kind of flicking between three separate things, and also they can't get out through the front doors of the TARDIS. And eventually, kind of madness begins to set in, and it's a kind of question of if there's some otherworldly presence aboard the TARDIS, whether something managed to get in at the end of their previous adventure, or whether it's just kind of four people in an impossible space, kind of going mad from it. Ultimately, this is Doctor Who does cabin fever. I mean, you've probably seen this a million times before in kind of survival horror movies, kind of when people are in a place like a cabin and then they're kind of trapped together for a while, and then eventually kind of someone kind of ends up going mad, and it's a kind of a mission to kind of keep each other okay and keep everyone alive until dawn. This is kind of Doctor Who's version of that. And while it's not the best, it's actually done pretty well here. I mean, Susan ends up kind of most of the time kind of suspicious of the others, seemingly willing to stab anything that moves. Kind of, Barbara's just trying to keep everyone level-headed. Ian is kind of ultimately suspicious of almost everyone, including the Doctor, and the Doctor remains kind of grouchy towards the rest. But then there is also kind of good elements of this in that when it's kind of finally revealed kind of what's been causing all this and what the problem was, the Doctor does actually seem to kind of finally accept Barbara and Ian. Kind of, he finally seems to kind of soften towards them and admit that they are good people and that they've saved his life occasionally. But when I said this weirdly reminded me of two of the best New Who episodes, the two that I was referring to were the 10th Doctor Series 4 episode Midnight and the 12th Doctor Series 9 episode Heaven Sent. Just hear me out on this. Because the ultimate overarching theme of it being Doctor Who does cabin fever was kind of best explored in the 10th Doctor episode Midnight, and they did it very well there, kind of showing people's kind of anxiety and distrust of each other, kind of as they know that there's something amongst them, and yet they ultimately suspicious and are willing to kind of sacrifice each other at a moment's notice. That was done very well in Midnight, and it's done very well here too. I mean, the only real difference is that, little bit of a spoiler here, there doesn't actually turn out to be any creature, it's just kind of madness setting in the Edge of Destruction, whereas in Midnight there kind of really was a creature, and it was just down to suspicion, kind of what was going on, and kind of trying to figure it out. The reason why I also compare it to the 12th Doctor episode Heaven Sent is because this is another example of how you can do so much with very little. I mean, Peter Capaldi did it best in the episode Heaven Sent. I mean, while there are other characters who do appear up in Heaven Sent, such as Jenna Coleman's Clara Oswald does appear for a brief minute, and also the Veil that's chasing the Doctor, and the child that he ultimately meets on Gallifrey. Most of the episode is just Peter Capaldi, the 12th Doctor, his inner monologue. And yet they managed to do that essentially an entire episode based on one character. And The Edge of Destruction kind of does something similar because while it's not one character, it shows that they don't have to introduce new characters or new monsters to make something kind of exciting and interesting. All they needed was the 4 original characters and just have them in a room and see how they react. And honestly, it's done very well. I mean, as I said, I don't know if it's the best it's not one that I really think would make it onto any best list, but surprisingly, it does do surprisingly well with a very simple premise. 4 people in essentially a locked room having to kind of deal with the fact that they can't escape and they don't know what to do. And it's done very well. So I think overall, The Edge of Destruction, not a bad episode. Not necessarily, not going with top 10, but definitely way better than I think anyone really gave it credit for. Well, that actually concludes my short foray into the beginning, because the beginning only actually had 3 storylines in it. I mean, I can't get the next one because, well, Marco Polo remains still missing. Years since it was gone, it's still missing. I mean, I might try and get into others later on. I mean, I did ask briefly whether I should try and get into the invasion or the Dalek invasion of Earth, but for the time being, An Unearthly Child, the Daleks, and the Edge of Destruction, I'm done with them. I think they're pretty good. Yeah, it's been a nice ride, and maybe I'll come back to the First Doctor again at some point. We can only hope. Until next time, one day I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until then, there must be no regrets, no tears, no anxieties. Just go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine. Goodbye, Susan, my dear.